Hello, and welcome back to Behind the Business Chat. Every business has a story, and I'm setting out to learn the stories behind some of Chattanooga's most loved businesses. This week, I had the lovely opportunity to speak with Logan and Amy, owners of Chattynooga. Chattynooga is a local newsletter that stands out from the rest. They send weekly updates on Chattanooga events, locals in the community, and fun topics. These are all tied up neatly into a whimsy and quirky little short storybook style writing, as if it was delivered by a couple 10-year-old Appalachian kids. Don't just take my word for it. Sign up for the newsletter and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's linked below for you. And Logan's also been working on another project to help the community, so keep watching or listening to learn more about that as well. Now, without further ado, let's meet Logan and Amy.
Hey, I'm Logan, and otherwise known as Bubby.
I'm Amy, aka Clementine.
And we're the creators and writers of a little newsletter known as Chattynooga.
So,
well,
could you tell us a little more about what Chattynooga is?
Yeah, so the best way I kind of describe it is it's basically all the good stuff about the local news that you might see across, Facebook or Instagram, and also things that small businesses are talking about, but it's all told from this perspective of two country's cornbread 10-year-olds. And so we kind of add this narrative storytelling into it rather than myself and Amy telling it, just because it provides this kind of different spin into creative writing that also helps people get to know more about their town and their city that they live in. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
We like to think of ourselves kind of as like the front porch newsletter. There's something universal about sitting on the front porch sharing stories, and we like to think that that's what we are for the community. We're a place to share stories, and in a unique way that is pretty accessible for people, and we hope that when you're reading it, you kind of feel like you're reading about your home.
And it kind of takes on a different style and form, I think, in the way of where a lot of local news, where it's like you kind of get it every day, constantly, because there's a full team, and there's a space for that, and we respect that. But it's also kind of takes on this parody of where the Little Rascals, where it's where we play as Bubby and Clementine, where they're these pretend journalists, where it's they look up to people that are they're helping, they're informing the community, they're trying to get to know more about their city without getting also involved in the bad stuff and arguing and the things that also comes with news that is important to showcase, but also we don't need to talk about that because there's other people that do that stuff. So that's where we kind of just take this idea on, where it's also very digestible. We don't want to annoy people, so that's why we come out once a week at Monday mornings. We used to do it every 10 a.m., but now we say 10 to 11ish, just because based on how
you'll get it by lunch.
Yeah, so yeah, we just, as long as you get it by Monday, and then we just want to make sure that's kind of catching up with someone that you have a pen pal with. Yeah, that's kind of where we kind of structure that right now. It also just helps us keep up to date with what everyone else is up to, because a lot of people reach out and they tell us what they're doing. So we kind of want to involve the community in that process, and so far we've been doing it for a year now, and it's been really cool to just see that come alive little by little.
Just over 50 issues.
Yeah, 50 issues. So
it's crazy. That's a lot if you think about it.
Yeah, it really is. Honestly, the biggest thing that I'm kind of proud of myself for, because usually myself, I get hyper fixated on these different things. This one time I was I really love cyberpunk, and I was just going into everything, and I was playing video games about it. I was going into making these crazy epic playlists on Spotify that was just cyberpunk things. But then it was all right, 2 weeks gone, and I'm okay, I'm moving on to something else that sounds cool. And so usually my hobbies and weird interests collaborate into these quick bursts of ideas and things to try out. But I came up with this thing that's really long term, and I can see a lot of value that it gives to the community. So it's been really cool to actually stick to something long term for once, but really just bring the community into the process rather than do something by myself. And so that's kind of hard too with a lot of the projects that I've done in the past, just involving other people in that. It's just been kind of difficult. So
it's been a lot. I've seen a lot of growth in both of us, and it's been really cool to see just in 1 year how much we've changed, how much our characters have changed, and just we're just getting started.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's always an evolution, and it's similar to what I do is very parallel to what you guys do.
Yeah.
And yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm everything I do is out of my comfort zone.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where the best stuff is.
Yeah.
Life is lived at the edge of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's so much easier to just do these solo projects, stay at home, be like a hermit, and work on your own little stuff when you're introverted,
Yeah.
And so, but forcing yourself to get out in the community and talk to people and stuff, you're I don't know if I want to do that.
Absolutely.
I've seen that it gets easier though. The more it's there's this piece of us. I think it's just a natural as you grow up, the world changes, and it's you don't always feel like you fit. And that's kind of, I know for me, that was a lot of my going into things. It's I walk into a room and I worry that, these people might not accept me. And so kind of recognizing though that Chattanooga is full of kind people who are looking to kind of collaborate with other people. It's very, you help me, I help you. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really neat to kind of see where I'm not from here. He is.
Right.
It's part of the Chattynooga lore is that Clementine is from Chestnut Mountain, Georgia, which is where I'm from. It's like this little, it's not a mountain, it's a hill.
Yeah.
But so it's like coming here though, this is my home.
Yep.
It's really nice.
Yeah, and also talking about the topic of community is like whenever I first started this project, it started with me. What I previously worked at was like an email building tool. So it's like think of like Squarespace, but strictly for designing emails. And so when I first started working there, I came into this space where email is like such a really big thing that people are not really talking about as a marketing tool, one of the highest performing things. And so I got into this like weird niche industry of like email marketing and design. And so
Yeah, it's like the ROI on email is what? It's like every dollar spent, you get back like, I think it's $42 or $43.
yeah,
what
it's
it is.
whenever you utilize and understand like not just seeing email as like a weird marketing tool, but also using it as a tool that builds your community instead of using it as a tool to sell to people, using it as a way to nurture the people that are already interested in the stuff that you're talking about, you start to see it as a really cool way that you can actually turn into a community. And so when I first moved into this idea, where I was working, I was not really getting a lot of opportunities to build online community for our product. And there was like a lot of shifts for leadership and all this crazy stuff that was like beyond my control, where I was just getting snuffed out of like growing into, different career opportunities that I wanted to take on. And so I was just like, I'll just do it myself. And so last January, actually on New Year's Eve, I was just like, I bought the domain chattynooga.chat and the domain also chattynooga.news. And there were some drinks involved, but also it was like, I didn't know what I had in mind for it, but the next day I kind of came together and I was like, okay, like I know I want to talk about, Chattanooga, but I don't really want it to be like these weird newsletter where it's like news where it's just like regurgitating everything that's found
Where it's
from
already done so many times.
They're literally grabbing the same information from stuff like Nougat Today or the Chattanoogan or Time Free Press, and it's just like
it's slapping their branding on it and calling it a day.
It's like, oh yeah, like we did journalism, and that's okay. And like we even ourselves, like when we find, when we use our events calendars and stuff, there are some events where like, okay, like this is already being hosted on Nougat Today, then we spotlight that. But if we also have these components where like you and what we're talking about right now is where we call our Yap sessions, and so we bring people in from the community that we either find them directly when we're scrolling Instagram or Facebook or these Facebook groups and stuff, or people reach out to us through our partnerships forum and they're like, hey, we want to come on and talk to you, either through you coming to our business and doing an interview or having like a Zoom call. And it's kind of like our way of like spotlighting these people that are doing really cool things in our community but may not have like the advertising budget or have the opportunity or network connections to, or even know where to start on getting themselves out there. And so it kind of helps us to be like, okay, we'll write content about you as like a freebie. And from there, we're introducing you to our audience and the community and getting you plugged into the other people that I've found that have made the community what it is now. And so from that, we may have a small audience compared to these larger news groups, but people are constantly showing up, and we've seen that just through our analytics. An average newsletter performs maybe between 30 to 40% as like their audience opening it. We've constantly seen like 65% averages.
Wow.
And so in non-nerdy terms, it's really high performing because we really take the time to engage with our people, and we're also adding these components where you might have these stories that they've reached out to other people to spotlight, but we've also have a lot of other stories that other news platforms have not even covered. So it's kind of cool to have that exclusivity of like real neighbors in your community doing cool things.
I think that what sets us apart from other news publications is that our primary goal is not to tell the news. Our primary goal is to tell the stories of the people in our community, and that overlaps into the news when we're sharing about a person's story and whatever's going on. There's a place for that. People need the news in a digestible format that tells the fact. People love to see themselves in the media that they consume, and the news doesn't always reflect that. The news often uses, sensationalism and tactics that don't always encourage and support people.
Most of the time it's not honest. I have
Exactly.
seen firsthand. I had a job previously where my boss's son was in a terrible accident, like he was on life support sort of thing, so obviously the news picked it up. And so since I knew firsthand the family, I knew what actually happened. The news went and the article came out and he was so mad, and rightfully so, because it's like we read the article and we're like, this is not even remotely the same story of what
that's
actually
insane.
happened.
They build those clickbaits and then just to drive, and we love that we are seeing great performing, numbers. That's wonderful. But even if it wasn't performing incredibly, we're thankful that, 10 people are hearing this story, and people like to see themselves, and hearing another person tell their story encourages other people to live their story and tell their story and connect with the other people who are doing the same thing.
And I think also one of the things that I really enjoy about what I've enjoyed so much about Chattynooga is that a lot of people, and I feel like this is becoming more common nowadays, but a lot of people are thinking that you have to have this like fully final polished product that you, in order to go out into the world and be like, hey, like, I have this business or I have this website or whatever it is that you're wanting people to engage with and actually benefit from it. You don't have to get to that end zone before you start to bring people into into that process. And even better, like when you include people and the people that you're building it for from the beginning and ask for feedback while you're building it. That's why I kind of enjoyed the messiness of building, where it was like, I first started Chattynooga. It was just like this little cruddy landing page and our first issue where we didn't really have anything to talk about. So the very first thing we talked about was the Super Bowl and all the memes and stuff that were coming out of that. So
It was early February.
So it's always fun because our anniversary is literally the week of the Super Bowl now. So
It was funny. We used to have, because we literally didn't know what to talk about, so we would just find random things on the internet that had nothing to do with anything. And we would just, it was so fun.
Like inspiration.
And we would sometimes try to find like random things that did connect. Like at St. Patrick's Day last year, we talked about Alabama leprechaun, which is we found a thing on the internet about it. And but it's changed a little, but we definitely were flying by the seat of our pants for a while.
And I think also what's really cool too is what I really enjoy about email marketing and design and having a newsletter over using like social media to have with our audiences is it also helps me with my background in design to create this kind of storytelling experience where it has this unique thing of it feel like a variety show that you have in your inbox once a week. Going into what Amy was talking about is like we would experiment with different bits of things I found on the internet, and it would have like, the small website or like a chunk that would kind of be relevant to what we were talking about that week. For example, we had Regina Gieb from Community Gains on, and she does mental health coaching and wellness and stuff like that. And so we had these cool, relaxing, it was like this website that would have you look in the window of someone else's home and their universe. And so it would just be these recorded screens of different people's views out of their window. And so it's like a chill space. So it kind of is like a way to like slow down. And so instead of building to like optimize and get as much money out of people, it's like you're building for your audience to showcase this is kind of what we're here. Is like we kind of like enjoy little weird oddities that are in our community, but also being intentional about the people that you're with and kind of building for that space also. I know it's kind of a lot, and I know that's all part of my yapping. So
I think on that note, though, my favorite thing that sets us apart is that we are silly. I think there's so much heaviness and fear and just negative emotions that come with reading the news or watching TV or opening your computer. I think it's really cool that we just don't take ourselves too seriously. I think it's cool to see how our real personalities bleed over into our characters. Clementine is entirely unhinged and in a 10-year-old way, which is fun to kind of reel it in. There's no need to like follow structure and like cite your source. Well, we do cite sources if we obviously, but you know what I mean? There's no like MLA format and
it's just fully creative. There's no rules to it.
There's no rules.
We kind of think of it, oh sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's just like a blank canvas and we just, whatever pops into our head. It's cool too the way we'll be like, Monday or Tuesday, we're like, I don't know what we're going to write about next week. And then Thursday, Friday, we're like, I kind of got an idea, but I don't know if I love it. And then by the time the issue comes out, inspiration has struck and we bounce ideas off each other and we get it. I don't know.
So do you really just plan week to week?
Yep.
Because
it's honestly the most chaotic. Yes and no. It depends on what we have set up.
You probably have like a couple things already ready to go, like on the calendar sort of thing.
Yes.
He keeps the apps on the schedule, and then we have them so we can kind of plug them in. But then a lot of the other things, my corner usually is something going on that week. And like a lot of times, like when I wrote about the Super Bowl, I was like, I'll wait until the Super Bowl happens because I want to write about what happened, you know? And other times, it really, we're being honest, we both got some serious ADHD, and we work real well under deadlines. It's been a challenge for us though, because it really was a struggle early on, and we have, even though it's not the most professional, like journalistic approach, we do have our systems, and we have we have what works for us, and we have gotten really good at taking feedback from each other, which was another thing that we butt heads on a lot in the beginning. We have different backgrounds. Like I was a teacher for 10 years, so I have which is funny because mine is the one that's the least grammatically correct now, which has been almost like an exercise for me. It's like my
you're like
approach,
eyes twitching as you're writing.
and I still will get on him because he's Bubby, he's the Appalachian kid. He never spells out words.
So I talk in contractions, and it's like it's Southern twang.
Well, it's not even just contractions. It's yer, Y-E-R. Spells
whatever
video.
you do not plug your articles into Grammarly.
No.
I would just start crying.
It's like you're scored 30%. Like, that's terrible.
Like
read all of this.
My favorite word to use is yank, where it's Y''AIN''T. And I'm like, Amy, is it? And I show her the sentence, and I'm like, Amy, this is right. And she's like, I hate how grammatically terrible it sounds, but structurally
technically
it is
still wrong.
It is technically
you can't really do that.
Honestly, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I'm very everything's grammatically correct and all that stuff, but like I love the newsletter and love how you've made up these words. How did you even make up that word? Like
literally what he does is he will speak, and then whatever it sounds like is what he writes down. The worst one is video.
It's video.
VIDYA.
Playing any video games?
Only because he hears it that way, and that's really,
but
also, as a teacher, that's great.
Yeah, but also one of the things where it's like I need to kind of spell this out more appropriately in terms of like the world building and lore that surrounds Chattynooga. A lot of the things that I talk about, or the people, or like, for example, there's a lot of different things that come from my own childhood or my family background that I bring into the story. And so like, for example, there's these instances where you kind of hear Bubby talk about his Meemaw and his Papaw. And it's kind of this noticeable thing where he doesn't really mention his mom and dad. And so it's this kind of nod where a lot of kids grow up just living with their grandparents. And so like my cousin, she's lived with one of my grandmas the entire time she's been alive. And so that's just like part of our family dynamic. And so that's also something that's kind of common. And I've kind of recognized that after talking with some other people where they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so I knew, grew up with their grandparents and stuff like that. And so other things about like Southern hospitality or the culture that growing up around, I kind of thought was either normal or something that everyone dealt with. Is not the case whenever I was living either like in Orlando or working remotely with people from Italy and California, where it's like, oh, I'm kind of an odd one out. Not a bad thing too. Also, like there's bad, things surrounding Southern culture as well that we kind of just like try to shed a light on that through Chattynooga. You wave at your neighbors when you drive by, or like living simply is not a bad thing as long as you're, able to make the most out of it. But also, there's a lot of stigma about embracing mental health. And that's something that I've come to really help myself growing up. And that's something that I kind of lacked as well, in my life. Entwining these things that I feel Southern culture is kind of lacking, and being able to have hard conversations about mental health in that same breath too. Yeah,
I think we both definitely draw inspiration in our own lives. One of my favorite things I got to do was last year for it wasn't for Women's History, it was for Teacher Appreciation. Yeah. We did a feature where it was like shout out a teacher, and so we did a couple for people. Valentine wrote about her favorite teacher from Chestnut Mountain, where she's from. It was my mom, who's a teacher, and so I wrote this, I crafted a narrative about how she wasn't my teacher, but she was the cool teacher, and it was just really cool. And then I got to share that with my mom, and she's not even here, but a piece of her is in me. Yeah. I think another thing that you were saying, Logan, is we don't necessarily tackle the news and talk about here's what's going on in this part of the world, and here's what's going on in the government. But what I really appreciate is that we try to make ways to address the gravity of where we're living in, the times we're living in, still an air of hope. There is a place for reporting those facts, the heavy facts that are necessary, that we need to know, but we really focus a lot on feelings. Yeah. And we all have this universal shared what going on in the world right now? And so making Chattynooga kind of a place to like express that. You know, we don't have to have all the answers. You're not alone in that though. We see you, and we're thankful to be part of a community with you that builds each other up and that wants the best for each other.
Yeah, that's always been my issue with like not just the news, but just in general. Like people get on social media and it's like if some major tragedy has happened, they're like they post for it's always 2 weeks. I'm it. Like it's 2 weeks. Yeah. And then you forget about it like it never happened. Everybody's like, post this. If you don't talk about this, it means, you know, your silence is louder than your words, you know. Yeah. It's like, okay, everybody's aware. So it's like I'm spreading awareness, and it's like, okay, that's cool, like, but everybody's aware now. So like, now what? Like,
it's like
exactly.
Now you've left everybody in a negative space. So
we
know there's a problem.
We're in the negative,
and we don't have a
and there's no solution
or like you mentioned, hope.
There isn't though.
So
there's no solution.
Let's plug that in next.
So
please.
where do we meet those people who are in that negative space? And that's kind of the way we approach a lot of our writing.
Yeah, and I think also too is like when we approach it from this idea that I really like framing our characters of like small children, because, you know, when you think of a child or you think of someone that's young, it's like they don't have a lot of impact that they can do because, like, you know, you have to be a grown up, you have to be able to do things. But like, you know, in reality, it's like as long as you're present and able to, you know, you want to do something, it's like then that's all you really need, as long as you have to have that will to actually, you know, get started on doing it. And that's what a lot, you know, myself included, like a lot of the stuff whenever I first started, I had no knowledge whatsoever of like, you know, I knew how to design, you know, I knew how to design sense of like what makes a good email using, you know, basic human, you know, design concepts, but also there's other things like email automations and marketing and all these kind of things where it's like, I don't really know how to do that, nor like, is it something that I really enjoy, which I'm actually kind of lying to you, I really do enjoy making marketing automations, but I won't get into that. So I won't get into that. But
did you become addicted to it?
Yes, it was
like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then once you figure it out, like, oh, this is fun.
They'll call me and be like, look at what I did. And I'm like, I can tell that it's cool, but
like I'll show her. And so it's like I kind of take everything that I've learned personally, and the things I'm doing are actually, you know, working and they're performing well. So I think I know what I'm doing. And so I've actually started doing some consulting on email marketing and newsletters and building people's websites through that. And so that's actually been like a byproduct that started from Chattynooga. But like going back to that is like, you know, I think if you just start, you have a rough idea or a sketch, you don't have to have everything figured out in order to get to it, as long as you have this plan. And what I did whenever I had our first issue going, I looked up how can I connect to the community to get started on actually connecting with these things and not just like sitting in my house just making random stuff that I would find on the internet to talk about Chattynooga. And so I found Coffee Break Chattanooga, and it was with Chris at BCAF, and I just showed up and I was like, hey, I have this idea, I don't really know what it is, it's kind of weird, it's got like this, you know, little kid as the mascot, and he's like okay,
it's made up characters based on reality.
It's made up. To at this point in the podcast, like pop up a picture of Bubby.
Oh, I'm definitely going to. Okay, here's an idea I had. Was have do cutouts of their faces and put them on you guys just for like not the entire time.
Logan was Greg from Over the Garden Wall for Halloween, which is the inspiration for Bubby. So we got a picture of him.
Well, I mean, yes. But so all these like weird elements, but he was like, okay, that's cool, welcome, here's this person that you can talk to, and it just like set off all of these connection opportunities that, you know, as long as you put in the effort of showing up and being
% of it.
That's 90% of things. I do try my best to add something new to the work that I'm doing. Like, for example, something small. I added a testimonial page to our website. Now it's like I want to work on adding, like, for our Yap sessions, I realized that they're starting to get higher, like longer form content, and it takes up our email size, which causes a lot of our emails to get clips. And so,
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So, so fun fact: if it's anything over 102 kilobytes, Gmail immediately clips it because of how they have their sizing and how they store things. So
it was beneficial to me at my new job. Actually,
so
I know where I have to stop.
And so when you go into these things, knowing, it's like there's limitations in email as well. So you have to go in with this design sense, knowing what you're building for. You can't build these long things. You have to have, constraints as well in that. With that, we're now thinking of adding a section just for our Yap sessions. So we would have them linking out instead instead of it being part of our weekly send.
Like a little bit of a blurb, and then click here to read.
And have a full blog style content.
So we can like do justice to the people that we are.
Yeah, like and be able to.
Yeah, you don't want to tell them like, hey, you're talking too much.
Kind of like sum it all up into.
Yeah, well, it's like, because me, I get down and I'm just like, right, and it's like, okay, cool, I have a 2,000 word thing, and it's like the whole issue itself is between 16 to 2,000. I'm like, how do I condense this down to 800? So it's like, I just like, okay, I need to reapproach this from different angles and different stuff like that. And it's like, what are the things that are important that we need to highlight in our YAP sessions, or what are the main points that we get across whenever we're talking about whatever we're talking about?
You hit the nail on the head earlier. You were saying that, like Chris said, all right, welcome. We mentioned earlier, it's Chattanooga is a community that shows up for each other. There's a piece of it, like we would early on, I think, describe it as weird. And I've noticed that we never had a conversation about it, but we both dropped that word out of it. Now and then we'll say like, it's kind of weird, but it's,
we call it quirky.
It felt almost like, I know this isn't what you're used to, but trust us, it's cool.
Yeah.
But we don't really feel the need to do that anymore because of the way our community has embraced us and helped us to grow. Everybody we connect with, it's been crazy things. Like I used to work at a bagel shop, and we connected with people from that job, and we connect with people that are friends of a friend, and it's like, it's exactly how a community is supposed to grow and be together.
Yeah,
and there we are.
It's one of those things where like it is weird.
Yeah,
If you take it at face value, it is weird. But it's one of those things that it proves itself.
Yeah.
So you just have to learn how to sell. Like you said, quirky is a good word. That was a word that I was using too, and whimsical, because it's fictitious characters basically, but based on real life people. But it's like if you can market it that way, saying that that's basically what it is.
Exactly.
And then people who are like curious about it, well, that's when you prove yourself when they open the newsletter for the first time.
And
it's been pretty great.
And I think it's kind of cool because when I first set out, after setting this foundation of like what I want to talk about through Chattynooga, my idea that I really wanted to flesh out was this concept that Chattynooga could be the community hub for anything related to community in Chattanooga. So like, for example, if you're looking for, things to do, like with clubs, like you can have recreational activities, there will be a section for that. And then, if you're looking for help in terms of like, you need like, for grief support or something, pertaining to like addiction, if that's something that you struggle with, and do like, looking for just like a 12-step community, having those resources available too, because that's something that, would be is necessary to go through with community. And then like professional networking, like Coffee Break Chattanooga. There's also sections, people that don't realize is out here that want to network and get together, like a Creative Mornings team and American Advertising Foundation Chattanooga chapter and Young Professionals. That was also my big thing. I'm just going into all these different kinds of communities around Chattanooga and learning about them. And so I kind of see this as like my 5-year vision of what Chattanooga can evolve to over time. But it's kind of these weird circumstances have started panning out to where I've gotten involved into something else that kind of is like the frameworks of this vision.
I think it would be so on brand to just come up with like some funny story of like why Amy left, like make it sound so serious, like it was actually something that happened and not.
Like, it'd be like the SpongeBob blocks where it's like 2 hours later.
Yes.
And kind of also have, whenever I envision Chattynooga, it's like this creative process where it's like I grew up watching cartoons. A lot of the visions and stuff that I started with Chattynooga when I was mood boarding and creating this, brand design was codename Kids Next Door, where it's like this, they use this technology that's like kids building stuff with 4x4s and like crazy like stuff like that mixed with over the garden wall and like silly stuff that 2000s cartoons did super well, and then bringing that to life in like the form of a weird newsletter design. So it's like it feels like a TV show as you're scrolling through of like different bits and little things like that. So sorry, I just off on a random tangent of that. But okay, so Roundabout.
Okay, so we talked about Chattynooga, how that came about. Just to summarize, tell me if I'm wrong on this, but basically you have a passion for the community, Chattanooga as a whole, and like current events and stuff like that, but wanting to share it in a new way, in a new light, basically, that's more positive and less like negative, but still like realistic. And then also just being able to have a creative outlet. Like your previous jobs, you weren't able to write write creatively, and now you're literally making up words.
Yeah, it's like a modern Shakespeare at times. But
And so you were frustrated with the email marketing one that you were doing, so it's like you basically took that and said, like, I can do this better. Twist, and so that's kind of how that evolved. And so now we fast forward to current. You are now involved in a new endeavor called Roundabout. How did that start?
Yeah, so going back to this really cool job in email marketing and design, I've been doing Chattynooga for about 5 or 6 months. In July of last year, like I said, I was not really feeling fulfilled in this role, and so some of my friends were sending me positions for other roles that I could apply for. And at the time, I didn't really want it because, I had this nice cushy job that's like, oh, I'm comfortable working here and it pays the bills. And I got sent this job offer it was like a community strategist associate for this organization called New Public. At the time, I didn't really want to apply for it, but I was looking at the description and it was said, like, they're trying to create a new social media platform that's built intentionally for rural online communities. And so I was like, I live in a kind of a rural community, and we're not because Chattanooga is kind of on this weird cusp of we are developing quite rapidly, but we also still have these outer regions of Chattanooga that is what I grew up knowing that are still developing on the ends of that, on the outskirts. So I wouldn't really call us a big city. And so I reached out for the program itself instead of the job, and was just like, hey, I run a local newsletter called Chattynooga. It's a little weird, and and it's not like the other stuff that we've been doing. And so I came on, and so I randomly got a response back the next day, not really expecting anything, and it was with Hayes, who's their director of programs, and we just got into a call and we're just talking about what Chattynooga was, and it was just we had 30 minutes at the time, and he's like, I know we're only talking for 30 minutes, but are you free tomorrow to just talk more about this? I was like, okay, sure. And so as it turns out, after doing more research on what New Public is and what this program was, New Public is a nonprofit that has been around the past 3 or 4 years. Specifically built around this idea of creating digital advocacy for social platforms. For example, a lot of social platforms that we see are through owned audiences. Facebook is owned by Mark Zuckerberg, Reddit, and then Twitter, aka X, is whatever.
Not only that, but they make money off of you and your personal information too.
Yes, and so because of that, we've seen this, when Facebook first became a thing, when Twitter first became a thing, it was just simple and a way to get to really know your communities. Whether they were local or there was somewhere, they were across the world, there was someone that had something in common with you and you could kind of relate on that. And that was the really cool thing about social media. And then it turned into this ad monster of AI and robots and crazy stuff that it is now. One of the co-founders, Deepti Doshi, is actually the product designer that created Facebook groups. She was a designer that worked for them when they were on the cusp of going from creating this Facebook group as a feature for Facebook. It was just used as a tool to build community. And then they shortly abandoned it and were no longer adding new features onto it. And so they were no longer incentivizing these people that have built now what we've seen for our local infrastructure of local Facebook city groups. So it can look here is if you're in Chattanooga, they have, the Saudi Daisy grapevines, the Middle Valley Red Bank grapevine pages, and they're all different isolated sections of Facebook where you can join and learn about and talk to people in your neighborhoods. But there's also 17 of those. And so the way that we would get news for Chattynooga is not by going to these news feeds across News Channel 3 and this stuff like that. We would just go into the Facebook groups because it's real and organic and it's what people are talking about in our community. But also it was a lot to have to scroll through all of these feeds, going
17 different times.
Yeah, going to all the different Facebook groups, but then also going to our Instagram feed of all the different accounts that we've curated, and then also going to stuff like Nougat Today and everything else to get this whole ecosystem of what's really going on in Chattanooga. Me firsthand, my background is in social media. Me being a part of this, both as a career and also as a regular user, it can be really overwhelming, especially with information overload. And that's one of the biggest things that's kind of happening right now is there's too much information happening. And so people weren't really supposed to have access to know about everything as humans. And so now we're kind of seeing the things that are happening because of it, the brain rot and stuff like that. We're kind of envisioning with New Public, along with former developers of the original Twitter, what this can look like when social media is redesigned to be built small and to serve hyper-specific communities rather than for everyone. That first vision is through Roundabout, and so we're actually testing this. One in North Chattanooga, and the other 3 locations are Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Richmond, Virginia, and Burlington, North Carolina. And so these are all rural communities where they may have some sort of central news source, like, News Channel 3 and News Channel 9, but it's not information that's directly dedicated towards their small towns. For example, we are focusing on North Chattanooga, which is kind of loosely represented based on Hamilton County's school system, how they lay out their mapping for districts. So that includes Hickson, Soddy Daisy, Middle Valley, Red Bank, and the North Shore cusp that leads into like Fraser into Coolidge downtown. Essentially, it is built around this small area because it's individually ran by a steward, which is myself, instead of having someone from Silicon Valley or
Like,
just a random
Chattanooga?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's stuff like next door communities where it's like, they have a lot of information and you have these hyper local feeds, but it's also mixed in with other people's stuff. And so if you're really trying to get information about your town through social media, you also have to deal with the algorithm of other people's stuff, the people that have paid for ads so you can see their stuff. And then you're having to fight with this too, both as a resident and someone that might be, say, like a business owner that, I have to spend $75 in order to have someone even see my things. We want to just make that easier. And, a lot of people think of this idea of a third space. There's a place that you live in and you stay in, there's a place that you work in, and then there's a third place that you rest, you socialize, and that usually looks like, coffee houses, community centers, churches, things like that. There's a lot of these virtual third places that are built with our town in mind, but not built by the people themselves. And so we're kind of working within their systems that are not supporting us digitally. And so we're kind of reimagining what that would look like if a digital platform served as like a public commodity, like a park or a local community center, and kind of integrating that into the city. So right now it's really interesting because we have been building this alongside people's feedback. We brought in a small amount of people of about 40 beta testers in the North Chattanooga area, ranging from, parents to, single middle-aged people to college age to local business owners to kind of, encompass like what these individual needs to be a citizen in a village, and reimagining how those needs can be met virtually and how we can turn those virtual discussions into physical action that leads into benefiting our community all around.
Yeah.
So,
and what I really appreciate is, because I was one of the beta testers, basically. I also signed up for the phone call where basically the people that are actually putting this together actually sit on a phone call with you and ask you questions, kind of try to dig into, figure out, like, get feedback on how to build this thing and to make it like how it's going to actually be useful for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been really cool to actually be a part of this process, because I've never seen
because like you said, a lot of people are like in Silicon Valley and just like, I'm gonna look at this data that I have over here and it says 50% of the people that live here are like this, so I'm just gonna assume based on this data that this is what we need. And it's like, no, you need to actually talk to the people and actually figure out, and everybody's different. You can't put people into a box. That tends to happen too, you got stereotypes and stuff. People try to generalize and everything. So that's a difficult hurdle to kind of work around.
Yeah, exactly.
But you'll still have better building stones to build off of when you actually talk to the people in the community versus just looking at data and assuming you know them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things too, of like from a design standpoint, is like a lot of people can make cool things, but it's no reason to make something when there's no one asking for it, And so before even going into this, a lot of, prior to even building Roundabout, a lot of the things that they were working on was resources on how you can be a good online steward for your local Facebook group or something like that. They recognized that even though they were, as they were still trying to work inside of those constraints, the processes and systems that the company had itself were still not supporting, and also showcasing the work that Facebook admins or Reddit admins do for a community in terms of sharing knowledge and information and having that archived digitally is really big. A lot of people make fun of them. It's like, oh, I'm a Reddit admin, and it has this like nerdy connotation with it of people that just sit online and do nothing. But it feels like you're a digital archivist for a lot of these communities, especially like subreddits, for like the Chattynooga subreddit, where there's real-time conversation happening. Where these systems fail on Facebook, where it's like people will ask questions, and like the Chattanooga Things to Do group, where it's like, where can I go take my daughter to do these things, and where can I do this for spring break? And people will, go on these feeds, and they'll have like 75 different comments at, amazing things for people to do, but there's no one capturing that information. And so that information will stay there in the feed, and then 2 weeks later, from people posting, it disappears. And then people are coming back, and it's like, hey, what do I do for spring break? What do I do for spring break? And it starts this process. And so what we're really wanting to do now with Roundabout is, when a conversation like that happens, and we've already seen this in real time, is, someone asked for questions on recycling. We had a friend that was beta testing around Christmas that was trying to find things to recycle her cardboard boxes because there was too much, but she didn't know, where can I take this stuff? And people that were testing the product immediately came in and gave, all these helpful resources that I didn't even realize. Like, you can go to Staples in Hickson to drop off your used or recycled computers or electronics. So that's like a drop-off zone. And rather than it just sitting in a thread, a steward can go in and turn that thread into a real living guide. And when you go on a Roundabout right now, you can see this full-scaled guide that kind of looks like an evergreen blog, but it's really sourced by the community members. And so that information is put in a comment. A steward would go in there hypothetically and verify that this content is real, which we would lead to hyperlinks of where this kind of verifies that information. But towards the end, there's a footnote of thanks to, Chrissy and to this person who contributed to actually making this guide, that these are real people in the city that are providing these sources. And then if something needs to be modified or added, people can just go back in and comment, and it restarts this cycle of making sure knowledge is still there that people can easily refer to whenever they're trying to find stuff. So yeah, that's a big nerdy thing that goes with community building, but it's also just making these resources and systems easier.
So my first pushback instantly is, why do I need another app? Why do I need another, login, that sort of thing?
Exactly.
I see how it's different, but it takes a while to explain that and see it's different.
Exactly. And, and that's also one of the pain points that we're working towards, and that's part of why we've taken time with actually releasing. We're bringing people in bit by bit to have them come in naturally and actually use the features themselves and make sure is this clear? Are we explaining these properly? And so that's part of the things of building in public early, is when you bring people in, you kind of have to make sure that it's going to be a little rough around the edges, and there's still stuff to perfect, but that's also really good because you can take these moments of feedback where you're taking that into consideration and actually verifying and making sure. And that's what I've really loved about working with the New Public team, is from a steward perspective, but also working from us having conversations previously with you, where you said there was something that happened where you reached out to ask a question through an email, and we did not have things connected properly on our end, where I would have normally received that email to the correct inbox, but alas, we didn't. It just kind of sat there. I sent that over to our Slack channel, and they had it fixed within 2 hours, and I was quick. It's cool to see because they're building these things by hand. They're not just taking let's put a Facebook inside of this thing and call it our own. It's these are people building directly from their coding experiences and using our real data from these conversations that they have with you and everyone else that's taken place to build something that is really easier. We really want to get back to your feedback. We really understand too, we don't want it to be another app, and so it's not even an app right now. It's just a website, and so if you do go to the website, it would be an app on your phone whenever you go to it. But one of the things that we want,
that was actually part of my feedback to them. I was honestly, I will use it more if it is an app, because if it's just a web, honestly, I don't remember the last time I looked at a call with them. That was probably the last time I looked on that.
And that's fair.
And that's just my own personal, patterns, and everybody's different.
And that's also true. When you build online community, you have to also build for lurkers. There will be people that want to engage and want to put their content out there, but there's also going to be people that want to lurk, and they don't want to comment, they don't want to see anything, they just want to see what everyone else is up to, and that's sometimes part of it. And so
that's what I was comparing it to actually in my phone call with them. I was because based on the questions they were asking me about it, I was the biggest parallel I can see in this is my actual Discord group. I'm I actually have a local Discord group that we all have a common interest, and that's why we're in that group together, but we are all local. So we do plan meetups and meet in person, but then we can also like ask questions and stuff. Like we even have like a traffic radar channel where we put all like, you know, if there's an accident somewhere around town, and I can see the vision, like that's basically what you guys are trying to do.
Which, so spoiler a little bit, but I'm actually meeting with someone from Hamilton County Schools. So we're kind of hitting from my niches personally of like working with small businesses and creatives. That's kind of where my zone of genius and knowledge is for building community. So we're starting from those and then working with other people to build those things. For example, I had a really crappy hiking guide on there when we first were starting to build out this structure for guides, and I never went back to it. So it's just been sitting dead. And so Amanda, when she first joined, was like, hey, I actually have this like right on my page, like it's right here. So
I was able to just link my blog post that had a bunch of like beginner hikes, because you were like, I don't really hike.
I don't know what I'm doing.
I go if I wanted to start hiking? And I was like, well, actually, I have a bunch of beginner hikes in the area that you can check out. Here you go. and that's where we want to serve. We want to be a true entity that serves a lot of multi-purpose things, which can be hard because we want to be a connector, but like also bring in these components that people are already experts of. We don't want to be a news company that takes over. We want to bring in the news people that are talking about Chattanooga, or the content creators that are talking about Chattanooga, and put you guys. You don't want to be writing all these hiking guides when you don't.
Like
hiking.
Why would I? Why would I when I can literally bring in? There's all these different experts that literally do this for a living, that I can rely on their expertise. What I really enjoy about community too is like, you know, there's bits and pieces where if you have a relationship with someone, it's not, you know, taking advantage of them, you know, putting seeds to where, how can we benefit from this all together? Like, what is it? Rising tides lift all ships and stuff like that. Where I've come in is where, you know, we don't want to replace what people are already doing. We want to amplify those efforts. And someone might use Roundabout completely different to where someone else might use it. We have a parenting channel to either connect with, you know, younger, you know, parents, have resources for that. I'm actually, you know, in talks of talking with a local babysitting app that might help, you know, provide resources for that based on their experiences, but also creating discounts for Roundabout members just for being a part of the community. Being able to have a truly owned network that feels intentional and not just like, this is Sam. She says she's from Saudi Daisy, but she actually lives in, you know, Paraguay or some random city, and you're also not arguing and trying to get in front of the people that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get in front of you when you have no interest whatsoever. It just puts, you know, low people really in a local community, and that's what we're really wanting to create.
And that's one thing I also didn't understand. Like, when I first got on there, I was like, am I allowed to post my own stuff, resources that I've made? Because like, if you have a small business, we have all been there. We have all been on the Facebook pages that as soon as you sign up for that Facebook page, the top of the like number one rule is like
no soliciting,
no soliciting, no self-promotion, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, what is the purpose of this? You know? And I was trying to figure that out.
And that's when we first came in. I think maybe if you came on recently, you might have these like onboarding cards where it's like, hey, here's how you can get started. Here's introduce yourself. And it goes through like a tutorial of how to use the platform. Well, we started with nothing. And so we were literally like, we just wanted the people to create an account and see how they would interact with the platform. And so now that we've established no one knows what to do with the platform.
Like, cool, I'm here, now what?
And so
what do I write about? Because that's the other thing. It's like, is it like your generic Facebook post where you're like, I had macaroni and cheese today? Like,
it's like, okay, yes. And so, and we also have like a general posting guide where we kind of created like a generic like, hey, here's some things that you can post about, but also here's things that maybe you shouldn't talk about. Like, and like, these are things that you can leave on Facebook or Reddit. Like, you know, if you want to talk about, you know, if you want to talk crap about your neighbors, go to your Facebook. And if you're a business owner, like for example, I was talking with Barbara from Rev. I've been talking with her a lot throughout this whole process of, oh, I'm doing this. Okay, now it's a thing. Oh, like we're bringing people in now. So I was like, Barbara, you need to get on here now. She's been really fun to just like talk with. And so she was wanting to post her event calendar for the coffee shop, but she was like, I don't want it to come off as salesy. Like, I was like, Barbara, like, that's the point. And I was like, are you a local business? Do you live here? And I was like, then you can talk about it as long as you are doing something that is contributing to that community space. It's like, and the things that she was wanting
to think that we've been conditioned to think that like posting your event calendar is too salesy, you're pushing it out too much and all that.
And
but it's like
and
how else are people gonna know about it?
Exactly. And it's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, please come to my business, like we really need help with this. And like, we've seen all the different spam bots of like, oh, this person, I don't know if you've seen those, but I run the Falling Water Facebook group, and so there are these like hordes of spam posts where it's this person's mom passed and now they've started a car washing job, and it's like, it's just a huge scam. And so we've come to like, because of this, because the bad guys ruined it for the good people trying to actually provide business opportunities, now you don't know who to trust. And so we're trying to provide that level of like security and validity by having a real steward that like lives in the neighborhood confirm this information before it even hits our page. We use bits and pieces of AI to process information. It's not using generative AI and doing stuff for people, bad stuff. It's just predictive AI that's been around for a while to find it, like when someone comes on and wants to say like, F the mayor or something like really rude, or it goes against our code of conduct, it catches it right before you even post it, and it's like, hey, do you really want to post this? And usually based off of science is like, when people are prompted to think about their decisions before making these rash decisions, they kind of have this moment of clarity where it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't talk about that. But
when it's like, pause for a second. Think about the outcome.
That's exactly. And we've seen many times where, people ask for recommendations, or if like, we're coming to the town, or we're coming to Chattanooga for the first time, and they're like, don't come to Chattanooga. It's like, that's not helpful. These are not what these people are asking for. When that happens, and if you think that it still should apply, sometimes our AI catches things like, I want to sell something, but we don't want it to be like a buy-sell trade page. So you can send it to a steward that, we actually look at it, verify it before, like your regular Facebook pages go. And so it's kind of taking that to a level where you kind of set these boundaries of like verifying this information, but taking the hard work off of the people in the community to do that. And so we wanted to get to a point where people that are interacting and don't want to have accounts or create a new app or be a part of it, they shouldn't even have to sign up, as long as they can get like an email digest and stuff. So it can kind of turn from this platform, a digital platform that they don't want to, deal with or have to, put their own stuff with. They can just get an email digest like you would receive and then like in a newsletter every week. So
like if you're just somebody who lives here, you don't have a business or anything, you're like, say you're a mom or whatever, you're just looking for things that you can do with your kids around the city, then you can find that information on there, but you don't have to contribute to it.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't want to have one of the biggest things too is that a lot of people are turned off from social media right now because it's just feeding data of like your interests and things you talk about. And we don't, that's the only thing that we ask about when you first create an account is like, what's your favorite restaurant? And there's times like we have options, like we have these things called prompt posts where we ask questions within the community. But that's really just to ways so we can kind of humanize the community of like based off of common interests, but also when we ask questions sometimes, like right now, one of the questions I asked as a steward is like, what are some of your favorite things that you like to do in the spring? Or like, what are you looking forward to now that spring's coming? And so ideally how that would work is like people comment like, I love to go on hikes, I love to do this. And then we can turn that into a guide based off of real community feedback. Like these are what, North Chattanoogans are saying they enjoy doing. It's hard to source that myself when I don't have all of these interests and things. And so that's where I really want to bring in people to showcase how when a community comes together and they all focus on what they're passionate about, if we're taking away these boundaries of like having money or having an audience in order to do the things that you're passionate about, and cut through that and just have it be, if you're trying to reach your community locally, then you can have that. And so that's the ultimate goal. We're planning our actual public launch on April 15th. And so we're actually doing a series of events from this month. This first week, we'll be doing a cookout in Saudi Daisy as like a commemorate our the very first thing where I first started this. We're partnering with a local mutual aid organization called the Garden House, and they're wanting to also become a 501c3 so that they can fundraise for creating like a soup kitchen and creating local pantries and stuff like that for the Saudi Daisy area. And so we're going from Saudi Daisy, hopefully from starting there, moving into different events and stuff like that, all the way up until our big event on April 15th, which we haven't nailed it down yet, but right now we're thinking either right here in Coolidge or the pavilion right across from the carousel. So
how are people supposed to find out about these events? Do they need to sign up for Roundabout to get that information?
Yeah. So if you want to sign up, we're still making things a bit nicer and some little bit of updates as we build out, but you're more than welcome to join if you want to. Just go to joinroundabout.com/North Chat. But yeah, you feel free to join Roundabout right now. We'll also have information related to each event leading up to our April 15th public release. We are trying to get it to where you do have to have a Roundabout account in order to participate, but we're trying to partner with some local vendors and some really fun people to basically make this just a community celebration and really bring people into seeing what social media can be if it's actually part of the city and people that are building it with you. So yeah.
When it's leveraged properly.
Yes, when it's leveraged properly and it's built, it's not built for profit, it's built to serve.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the really cool things that I enjoy about Roundabout is like...
Yeah, it is a nonprofit.
Yeah, it is a nonprofit.
That was actually something that surprised me. Like when I hopped on the call with them, that's what she introduced saying. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
And I actually asked that question too, because, I always ask the questions, honesty. And I was like, will it turn into, a for-profit thing? Because I'm like, it's expensive to run a website and these sort of things.
Yeah.
Like the small scale of what I do is very expensive. So I can only imagine that larger scale and having to hire all these people to do all this work. So, and she's like, I don't know. Because I'm like, are you going to end up having paid ads? Like, is it going to?
Yeah. So
I understand you don't want it to devolve into what Facebook is.
But also there needs to be...
What's it going to look like long term?
Yeah. So that's something that, we're still trying to figure out ourselves too, because one of the things that they want to do, and like right now, is I'm being paid like a monthly stipend just to build good community. And so that's one of the things that they want to incentivize is like being a steward is a effort that needs to be compensated properly. And so
like even my feedback session, they gave me a gift card.
Yeah. And that's something they believe that the work that you put in for even just like conversations like this, like product research is super valuable, but also even though they are a nonprofit and they rely on donations, they still want to make sure that, they're being good stewards of, the people that they serve, and stewards included. We've been discussing once we have an established community, running donation campaigns and stuff like that, where kind of similar to how Wikipedia does like their annual thing of like, hey, like we need money in order to survive. Can you donate $5? And so we've thought about big models like that based on like community donations or grants that would fund that directly and also support the steward. The steward's not making enough money to where it's like, oh, I'm rich because I'm a steward, but it's like...
It doesn't become one of those like CEOs of, I will not name the companies, but we all know the companies of, where the CEO is making billions of dollars and yet their employees are making like nothing.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be more of a nonprofit kind of mindset. And you're like, this doesn't add up.
Yeah. But also if we're going into these expansion efforts of like, after our initial 4 cities and showcasing like, hey, like this is really, people really see the value in this, and moving into areas like, having an East Chattynooga steward or a downtown steward. So being able to cover those grounds, but have like these scalable systems that not only, support the community that they're serving, but also make sure that they're supporting the people that support the people. So through AKA the stewards, it is real work, and it's a lot of work to curate these resources, but also bring those resources from online to in person too, from like in the form of events and all those kinds of things. But there's a lot of fun things in store, and I'm excited to have people talk about it and get back to my hometown. It's kind of cool to just like be full circle of, growing up hating this place, and now it's like okay, cool, I wanna just do things for this place and give because I can, and do our best to like do it well, while also keeping in mind that there's limited money in order to do that. Just maximizing resources and in the name of community.
We'll go ahead and get into our digging deeper segment, and
dig a little deeper.
Now we got a jingle I have to throw in every time.
That's the Princess and the Frog. I don't have a royalty.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, can't put that one in there.
It's word association.
YouTube will get you.
Can you share a favorite memory of during the process of building Chattynooga?
Yeah, so I can go first. One of my favorite memories that we've done so far was when I think it was like, I'd say about 5 or 6 months in, we had released one of our issues, and it was I forget which one specifically it was, but we had some people that were signing up from our social channels, and one person had reached out after we had sent something out about our events, and she said that she was a new artist and she was local to the area and she just recently moved, and she was trying to get more connected. And so she was curious about, wanting more information on like vendors and things like beforehand would be really cool for our newsletter so that she would be able to apply and take place in like farmers markets and stuff like that with her space. And so I reached out to her and I was like, whoa, that's like really cool feedback. And we're kind of like, we haven't really gotten further on this yet, but we're actually building out like a tool that's for these farmers markets that are kind of like, we can find different markets happening around Chattanooga, but also find vendors as a market creator to source inside of your markets. So that's something
work in progress.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, but
A tool for both sides. Basically. It works both ways.
Yeah. And so from that conversation, I was just emailing her, and she was like, I can't really get out right now because I had an injury, but it would be really cool to hang out, and you could know each other. And I was like, well, that really sucks. Like, I didn't realize that she had an injury. And something that I've really been reading about recently is this book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it's this idea where you really dig into your business to kind of be obsessed. They use the term obsessed with your customer, but it's like you really go.
We're not weird.
Yeah, well, it's like you go above and beyond to provide great experiences, not based off of like, extravagant details or like going, spending a ton of money. It's just by like really hitting the mark on providing a great experience, because
shifting your perspective, because a lot of businesses look at the money side. What's going to attract more customers, more money, and that sort of thing. Instead, recognize your customers are what bring you the money.
Exactly.
Because of that, you should be focused on them and their experience.
Yes,
and everything.
Yeah, and creating, and so using that model in mind, for example, I worked for Disney for 5 or 6 years, and so I started from the bottom and got all the way towards like creating, I worked in the resorts area doing resort bookings and stuff like that. And so I kind of say like I'm a customer experience snob, because I was trained to just treat your customers really well, and regardless of whether that meant paying for their rooms for a night or doing something like that, where it's kind of different now because Disney's in a weird place after COVID. But, back then it was like, we would go above and beyond to take care of the guests, because that was the bottom line, whether you're at the bottom of the totem pole or all the way up to the executives. And so.
Were you talking about Lynn though?
Yes. And so all of this is
I didn't know if you remembered where.
No. And so I was giving context. And so Unreasonable Hospitality goes on this idea of using what resources you have to go above. So I reached out to her and I was like, it sucks that you can't really get out because we're planning these things, but if you'd like, we can swing by and bring you a meal. And it was like, we had never talked to her other than just an email exchange once or twice back and forth. And so I was just like, is it weird to just reach out to people and say like, hey, can we just drop a meal off for you? And I didn't really know what to say or what to expect afterwards, but she got back within the next hour or so. She was like, I would love to, like that would actually be super nice. And so it turns out we bring her a meal and we just show up at our house, and it turns out that the day we had came to hang out with her, it was her birthday, and she was like,
it was just something really
special. It was just like, she didn't really say this on, she was like, I didn't want to be, if I said anything, I didn't want to make you feel bad for not bringing a gift or anything. She was like, but I've only been living here for like 3 or 4 months, and so I don't have any friends, and this, this injury happened at such a inconvenient time to where I haven't been able to get out. But this is, this newsletter that I signed up for on a random whim on Facebook, it's brought me more joy than I can imagine. And so
I'm really special, and now she's a really dear friend. And
you met her at the party,
which was going to be my memory. I said I already shared a memory, but our birthday party was a really special memory for me. It was kind of a celebration of the year that we'd had, and Amanda was there, and lots of our friends came, and it was just
it was bringing the online community into the real world,
which is kind of what Logan was saying too, with like taking meals. And it's not about like anything we've done, it's just like we take care of each other. So proud to be a part of that.
And like, we don't always have, we don't always have the answers to everything, but if you don't, I've always said that if I don't have an answer for something, I can find someone who does. And so that's really what we want to do with Chattynooga, is connect people to resources if they don't know how to plug in, or if they do, like, be a resource themselves, because it's so easy to use that knowledge to be able to help someone.
So what is your favorite part of the tasks that you do for Chattynooga?
So this feels like a cop-out answer because it's vague, but really does permeate every part of it. I have so much fun writing Chattynooga. I love that I get to do it with Logan. It's been, like I said before, we butt heads a lot, but it's been really interesting to see the way we've adopted things from each other's writing styles and like really come to be a team on this. But it's fun. We get to go and do cool things. We've gone to book readings and we've gone to openings and just awesome things in our community that I don't know that we would have had the ability to do before. And every week it just feels like new things are coming, and I know the best is yet to come, and I'm excited to see what's next.
Yeah. It's kind of like what I do is like, yeah, I end up doing all these things that I wouldn't normally do.
Outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, but then I also like to encourage people, you don't need to have a newsletter or a website or anything to do these things.
Exactly.
You know, you can just
get out there.
Yeah, if you're not doing anything that weekend, you know, go out and
check the events list and go find what you can do.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that's one of the coolest things for myself is like, I did not have a creative outlet for the longest time after COVID. I used to do a lot of design work for bands and stuff, and so I never really saw myself as a writer previously, but when I was in my last role I did a lot of technical documentation that apparently I was really good at, and so
I feel like that's very opposite of what you write now.
Yeah, and so I was like how can I, and so every time I would butt heads with my manager where it's like, how can I make this like a little funny, like how can I make these little, like how can I add a little silly, because like for example, like you see this in certain software like Discord where it's like where they make their brand language very like silly, and it's like because a lot of people that they appeal to are gamers and stuff like that.
You see it on social media a lot now too.
Yeah.
Official companies posting memes.
Yeah, and so every time I'd like make these suggestions, they'd be like, no. Like we're Italian and we're official, and you know, and that's the vibe, and it's that they were giving off, and I was like, okay, like that's fine. And so
I can respect
and
it.
so I was
But
like,
I'll change it.
and so I guess, so I was like, all right, well, if I were to do this my way, like what would this look like? And so that's what invented the southern twang of Chattynooga.
But it's literally Logan's inner child.
Yeah.
It's mine for sure.
Oh, is Bubby just pent up aggression about this
Bubby, yes.
topic?
Bubby is.
We are absolutely the adult iterations of our
Yeah, Bubby is very much an amalgamation of the inner child. But like my favorite thing, getting back to it, is being able to just get out and, you know, as someone who grew up here my entire life, I live 3 minutes from the house that I grew up in now, and growing up and not having anything as far as like community and a lot of friends that I would do things with, I grew up as kind of a hermit and kind of embraced that because I really enjoyed the gaming communities and stuff like that. And so a lot of my life was online. And so it's been really cool for me to be able to actually step into the community as an adult now and with new eyes and a lot of optimism and just being like, this is like my city that I grew up in, and it's just completely changed. Just like reconnecting with the city and learning to love it now. One of the really cool compliments that I've gotten is actually from my aunt. She subscribed when I first started, and she's like, I've lived here since 1978 and I didn't know about half the things that are going on in our city until I've seen your stuff. And I think at the time there was like Jerry Seinfeld at the Tivoli and stuff like that, and I was just like, yeah, like this is all the time, like, you know, we just had brand new things coming by, and a lot's just happening all at once. And so you just got to go looking for it.
Alright, that concludes this episode of Behind the Business Chat. Be sure to check out the info below for more links, resources, anything that is related to this episode. And if you're able to like, comment, review this episode, I would really appreciate it. I would love to know what you think. And maybe share it with a friend that you think would enjoy it. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And comment, send me an Instagram DM, an email, anything. Just get in touch. If you have any additional feedback about the show, or is there a local Chattanooga business that you would like to see on the show? Thanks for watching or listening, and I will chat again with you soon.